Hello and good morning, everyone. Only Positivity here. I have my coffee with me, ready to kick off podcast number 19 on this playlist that I'm looking to launch called Elevated Thoughts. So, before diving into the book for today, let's start with the level set. So, as I endeavor upon pursuing knowledge and life experience, in this next phase of life through traveling, fitness, photography, and many more things, one habit that I've really formed is reading. So this podcast essentially goes through some of the books that I've been reading as of late, taking those lessons learned and applying them to experiences in my life. So before diving into the book, let's start with the story for today. So, as you all know, like I'm very heavy into fitness. I wouldn't consider myself, an expert on it, but I work out every day, and I try out a lot of different types of workouts, right? I do cardio kickboxing, Orange Theory, traditional weightlifting. I run, I play basketball. I try to mix it up all the time. So, in college, what I would do is spend a lot of time in the gym, just weightlifting, right? That would be my thing. So, I really always encourage people to work out with me if they want. I think it's a positive activity for people to engage in with me. So I always invite people to work out with me, and I always have my gym bag with me. So in college, there was a particular guy who I was friends with, who wanted to get on that train, right? So he started working out with me for a couple months. I'd say about 2 months. He worked out with me. Um, and a side detail about this guy is he had aggressive psoriasis, right? And I don't know too much about the condition, but one thing that I do know is that it makes the skin very dry and flaky, right? So nothing against this guy, nothing, great guy. So we're working out one day, right? And so what I was thinking about recently is that, I haven't bench pressed in a while, right? We haven't been able to go to the gym. I've been doing a lot of push-ups and things like that, but just reflecting on, bench press. So like I actually don't bench press that often either, even when I'm at the gym. I generally will do, machine press, dumbbells, whatever, right? Always have avoided bench pressing for a few years now. And I was thinking about why that is. Okay, so I was going back to a story when I was working out this with this guy that I was talking about who has psoriasis. Okay, so I'm at the gym and I'm benching and this guy's spotting me, right? And it's the last few reps. I'm pushing it out. It's a little bit of a struggle, right, to get those last few reps out in the set. You're pushing yourself. Your form might be beginning to crumble a little bit, right? So just imagine I'm struggling to put this thing up. So while that's happening, the spotter is there. This guy is there to kind of help make sure this bar doesn't fall on my face. But his goal or his role is not to just yank it back up. It's supposed to help me push it up and squeeze out that last rep. So while I'm pushing this rep out, this last rep, um, flakes from his arms are falling onto my face, which is gross, right? Which is super disgusting. Not his fault, but these flakes are falling into my face. They're falling into my hair and to my eyebrows, to my beard. So um, it was a very like traumatic experience, I guess. It was kind of gross for me, and nothing against this guy, but that kind of I guess like. Traumatized me from bench pressing for a little bit, right? And I recently started picking it back up before all this COVID stuff started happening because it's a great exercise to do. Um, but I think I avoided it for that reason for many, many years. But luckily, there's a lot of replacements for bench pressing and stuff like that. So a little humor to start off the podcast, right? So let's come back to the book, right? So today we're going to be going through part 4 of book called Mindful Relationship Habits. 25 practices for couples to enhance intimacy, nurture closeness, and grow a deeper connection by S.J. Scott and Barrie Davenport. So, like I always say in these the past 4 podcasts, right? We're going to be going through 5 habits in every podcast. So we went through 1 through 5, 6 through 10, and then we went through 11 through 15. And today we're going to go through mindful relationship habits 16 through 20. And what's reassuring about this book is that there are practices that I already incorporate into my relationship, but there's always room for improvement, right? We're students of this world, and I always try to move forward with that mentality in mind. So Starting it off, we talked about at the start of this book that love and relationships is a great journey to embark upon. You'll find a lot about your partner and find out a lot about yourself as well. So let's go straight into mindful relationship habit number 16, practicing empathy. Okay, and we talked about that in the previous podcast as well. But empathy is a crucial part of emotional intelligence, and the book says it's a key part of a successful and happy relationship. But keeping in mind, not sympathy, but empathy. So, diving a little bit deeper into what empathy really means, the author will say it really means putting yourself in your partner's shoes and understanding things from their perspective. Now, I don't want to be sexist here, but or misogynistic or anything like that. But women tend to view things differently than men do, right? Not for better or for worse, but women view things differently than men in many scenarios. So I'll use an example, right? So when I hang out with the guys, right? I got a couple buddies that I hang out with, every single week, right? So um, we don't make set those plans in stone, right? It's more like Thursday night rolls around, Friday morning rolls around. It's the end of the week. We're ready to hang out. We'll hit each other with like a yo, you ready to get crossed up today? And that references basketball, or you ready to get dunked on today? Something like that. It's just like the way guys talk, right? And I'll be like, yep, I'm ready to wax it, whatever that means, right? So well, that really is a trigger for us to hang out. But I keep Fridays open, right? We all keep Fridays open for that reason, right? Even Saturdays, we'll keep that open sometimes, just so plans can happen, right? Because we don't generally plan things out far in advance when it's like a normal hangout. On the other side, my fiance is really busy. She's very very busy. She has a lot to do, a lot of priorities and things like that. So you really have to schedule something with her weeks in advance to get on her calendar, right? And that's okay. That's good. She's organized. She prioritizes things, and a hangout with her girls might have been scheduled months in advance, and they do an awesome job of it, right? Like for me, it's more like going to a buddy's house. We'll sit around, play video games, maybe play some Uno, play basketball, things like that, watch a movie. So it's very like laid back. But with her, she'll plan out a whole day, right? They'll go downtown, they'll get brunch, they'll go out for drinks later, go out for dinner, right? It's a whole thing. So they plan it out. What I have to understand is there are different ways of interacting, right? So empathy here is really me pulling back and realizing, hey, right, if I invite her to come hang out with my friends and I've only given her like 10 hours notice, that's not the best way for me to interact with her because I have to put myself in her shoes and really understand that the need for having a plan further in advance. So going forward to our next bullet, you have to imagine how your partner is really impacted by emotions, and you want to share in that emotion with them, right? Before you suggest a solution or course correct. And this can be tough at times for me personally, right? Because I don't necessarily I'm not there all the time for interactions, and it's hard for me to feel it sometimes, right? And I think a lot of interactions with friends and stuff like that. Guys don't really. Go too deep into conflict. I think we square it away really quickly. But on the other side, like certain friend groups can really take a long time to course correct and work through conflict. And I have to be there with my fiance to really to experience that emotion with her, and I want to know why it bothered her. I want to know what was the reason behind it. Things like that. What's really the root of the situation. And I think what's good about that practice, and the book outlines this as well, is that, it really allows you to distance yourself from your own like petty grievances, your own frustrations, and you really engage with your partner, right? Put your stuff to the side. It moves to the periphery. And that's and the author goes into another book called Emotional Intelligence: Why It Can Matter More Than IQ, right? And there's some further deeper dives into why these things are important. But essentially, my problems will go away for a little bit because I'm focused on my fiance's issues, right? I leave mine at the door. So let's talk about how the book suggests to form this habit. And I think this is really important. It's something I'm very keen on, right? And we talk about it. Take the time to notice your partner's demeanor, right? That means body language, tone of voice, specific word choice, things like that. it goes back to the habit we talked about as well, where become an expert on your partner, know all their little nuances, and continue to get to know them as time goes on. Right? Know the signs not only that indicate your partner is happy, but know the signs that indicate your partner is not quite themselves either, right? I think one thing I do for 100%, and I get better about it. I don't really do it as much anymore, but one thing I'll do is if I'm upset about something or I didn't really like it, my fiance will talk to me and I'll hit her with the yeah for sure, dude, yeah no for sure, and that's kind of then she'll kind of be like okay what's wrong, um, and she'll trigger that conflict resolution, or she'll at least inquire about it, right? At that point, because that's my signal that, I don't know, I didn't really jive with this. And then we go into it, right? And I think it's good to have an indication, right? Or a sign that shows, like, hey, look, we need to get into this a little bit deeper. And so the next point I have here is that like the book really dives into a good quote. So you know how we talked about in the previous podcast that it takes five interactions, good interactions, to resolve one negative interaction. So adding to that equation, if joy is doubled by sharing it, then pain is halved by sharing the burden of it with the one you love, right? And that's awesome, right? Together we are better, right? Together we can take on that burden, and not one of us is experiencing the full effect of it anymore because we're sharing in it, okay? And what that means to me is like you really feel supported when you have someone there who understands you, okay? And like let's use an example, right? Let's say I came home with an issue with my friend group, right? Oh, like something happened that like hit me the wrong way. And let's say I came home and my fiance was like, all right, just stop being friends with them then, or like, yeah, whatever, that sucks. Um, that would be slightly upsetting for me, right? Because I want her to understand why I felt that way, and vice versa, right? If she comes to me with a similar problem, I shouldn't just be like, stop being friends with them, or remove yourself from that situation, unless it's the best solution. But always try to go there and understand first before you suggest a solution. Okay. Um, and that like brings us into our next point, which is withhold opinions unless you're specifically asked for them. Okay, and like I have my own opinions on things that she brings to me, and she has opinions on things that I bring to her. But in that moment, if I'm not asking for your opinion, don't share it because there's a place and time for sharing opinions. In the beginning, you just want to hear it out, understand it. And there's an awesome practice that they say to do is if you want to truly empathize with your partner, right? Volunteer to take on some of their obligations. So for me, it's chores, right? We generally have a split of the things that we do, right? Our responsibilities to upkeep the household. Now, she can tell me what she does, right? She can say, "Oh, I clean the bathroom. I wash the sheets. Whatever, right? I go grocery shopping, whatever it is." Okay, she could say all these things, but if I don't actually do them, I won't understand what it takes to complete those activities, right? So for her birthday this past year, with all the COVID stuff, right, we couldn't do what we had planned. So what I tried to do was make like a little getaway in our house. So what that included was some coupons that I cut up and made with post-it notes, which essentially had different things that she could cash in, right? And amongst those things was a coupon for a full deep clean of the house, right? And that includes her responsibilities as well. So what I will say is like holy shit, like she does a lot, right? And I gained a brand new appreciation for what she does throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, throughout the year. So it took me a while to get the whole place cleaned up. But what it did do was give me that new appreciation for what she does do. So like now I can empathize with her a little bit further now. So going forward to our next point, consider your partner's needs in all decisions. So obviously that means big picture stuff like houses, cars, vacations, things like that. But I think personally it's those small daily choices that are going to really bring to light your ability to empathize. Things like like bring them a water bottle, right? That's one thing I do. Bring a water bottle to leave on the nightstand. I'll check the front door every night, so just kind of know we're safe, right? Everything's locked up. We can rest easy at night. I'll put away the groceries. I'll fill gas in her car on Sundays. Get the car maintained if need be, right? Like do little things without any expectations, essentially, right? Um, And I think also being present for the big issues, but also for the small issues, right? I think those day-to-day items where you can really engage, really show your commitment and provide you opportunities for growth. So, like, use an example, right? Where my fiance might be like, "Ah, what do I wear to this party?" For many guys that can be frustrating. Like, dude, wear whatever, you'll be fine. But like I said, become an expert on your partner. So now, like, I pretty much know all her outfits. So I'll be like, you know what? Maybe that gray blouse might go with those navy blue pants, and if you wear those nude heels, that might look good, right? I mean, that might be an ugly outfit that I just said, but like I know the different outfits, and at least I'm at the table and I'm suggesting things. And if she doesn't take my suggestion, all good, but it might give her a clear picture of what she should wear, right? And I'm there with her. I'm there. We're trying to end this decision together, even though it's a small decision, and it'll be fine. I'm there. I'm engaged. And last on this point, I think is really important is be mindful of the way you're speaking when you're in close quarters for long periods of time, especially right now with COVID going on. It's good to let your walls down, right, and be yourself, but it's also good to be conscious of the way you're speaking, right? Because you want to nurture an environment that encourages sharing and positivity. And that way, you both can feel vulnerable together, and you both can share and grow together as well. So that was mindful relationship habit number 16, practice empathy. We move on to mindful relationship habit number 17, which is use I feel instead of you. Now, that doesn't really resonate at a high level, but it's a very, very important conversation point. Okay, so at a high level, let's say when you're having a discussion or you're doing conflict resolution. Okay, you want to focus less on criticizing your partner, right? Finding a flaw in your partner and more communicating how you felt personally when that happened, okay? So the book goes into talking about the phases of a relationship, okay? So we talked about the first phase, which was the romantic, like honeymoon phase, right? And in that phase, right, you don't want to step on each other's toes. You might not like harp on something. You don't want to, show that quote unquote crazy side just yet, right? So the second phase, which is really, really eye-opening, is the power struggle. Okay, and so the book will say we start to dislike many of the things that made us fall in love with the person in the first place. Okay, so I'm gonna use an example from my relationship. So amongst a host of reasons, right, that triggered me to really like talk to my fiance more when we were not dating yet. She was smart, right? She's smart. She's funny. She's classy, right? She's articulate, and yes, she likes to go out and dance with her friends, just like I do. Right. And one of our first more like romantic meetups was downtown at a bar. We met up, we danced. It was a great time. It was an amazing night. Um, and once we started dating, right, I could start not liking the fact that she was someone who liked to go out with her friends, go out to the bars and dance. But when you think about it, that's one of the things that drew me to that relationship in the first place, right? That she was outgoing and things like that. So, you know, once I make that realization, it's like, why would I curb that interaction? Why would I try to change her? Because in reality, you're supposed to love unconditionally, right? So, not harping on that second phase, the power struggle, for too long, they go into the third phase, which is quote unquote conscious love, right? And we talk about this word conscious in the Power of Now, Four Agreements, Alchemist, right? Common theme echoed throughout, attaining mental peace and success in life. So, um, in a conscious relationship, the book says you're willing to explore your own issues and you feel safe enough to meet your partner's needs. So as you grow in this phase, one thing that's really important is you stop leaning on your partner as an escape or a solution to your problems, and you start seeing this as a wounded person just like you, right? We're all struggling to grow and we're struggling to heal. So what I'll say is that in my previous relationships, I don't think I ever got out of phase one or phase two, right? I don't think I ever got out of that honeymoon or that power struggle phase. Um, and my current relationship is like the first time that I'd say that I'm consciously and actively loving the other person, which is great. So the book says it talks about how to form that habit, right? And the first step is to be aware of your feelings. And I think there's great knowledge in this book where they say anger is usually a surface emotion. 100% true. you have to read beyond an abrasive reaction or an initial disposition to something and try to dig through to that root cause. And one thing for me is, why did that stimulus elicit that reaction? So whether or not I, have a very abrasive reaction, um, I want to know why this thing, the stimulus really got a negative reaction out of me, right? Like why did it do that? And I'm gonna dive deep into that and figure that one out. And one thing to do is communicate that, right? So when your partner understands why something triggered you or why you had that reaction, you can begin to understand your partner deeper and potentially change the behavior if that's the case. You can't just, and you know what? You can't just tell another adult to do something, right? You can't just say, "Don't do that because I told you to." Let's say you didn't want someone to do that because it led to a negative memory of yours, right? With a previous relationship. It's not fair to the person you're currently with to throw that on them without maybe explaining and trying to like come to another solution, right? So it's okay to ask for support, right? And I think like, when I say like, oh, for sure, right, to my fiance, that's kind of me expressing that I need some help, right? Like I'm asking for it. Can you help me through this? I'm upset about this. But if I were to come off like very aggressively, that cry for help is still there, right? But it may be harder for my fiance to pull back and help me if I was being so abrasive in the first place. Okay, so just some food for thought there as we hop off mindful relationship habit number 17, using I feel instead of you, and moving on to mindful relationship habit number 18, which is drop the buts. Okay, and the first example they use here is I'm sorry I forgot our lunch date, but I got distracted with work. So now we say in this book to cherish your partner and that your romantic relationship is the most important relationship you have. Now, one thing I've heard from a lot of people is that, you know, um, when someone says you don't have enough time, it really means that like that whatever that item is lower on their priority list because you will make time for the things that you want to get done, right? So make time for your relationship, right? Um, uh, if 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 it is the most precious relationship, you just definitely have to make time for it. So we go to the next point, right? So when you listen to your partner, even when you listen to your partner, they're gonna feel contradicted if you throw in a yes, but after they share their feelings. So you wait for them to finish their thought, and then wait until it's your turn to really offer thoughts on a situation. Okay, so um, you have to realize that like no one is above the other person in a relationship. And if either of you believes that, then you have to reevaluate, right? Because you are both equals. Both opinions hold the same weight, and no one should belittle the other person, okay? And what this means is that like all inquiries should really be met with a full scoped like due diligence, right? Um, like if my fiance comes to me with an idea, okay, I should be able to go full scale with that. Now, let me bring it back to me because my fiance is way better at it than I am. She's way more rational, I'd say. So, essentially, um, I love traveling, right? You guys know that's one of my things. So I'll always like, be scouting like flights and trips and packages and things like that. And I pitch them to my fiance all the time, right? I get her way in before I book it. So, like we're also planning a wedding, right? Which is costly. So, what she'll do is she's very cognizant of my feelings. She knows this is my thing. I love to travel. So, what she'll do is she'll say something like, you know what? I would love to go on a trip with you, and let's go over our finances to make sure we can swing this. And that brings me back down to earth, right? That brings me down from out of the clouds and makes me evaluate my situation, right? And that's very kind of her to do that. And the book actually says to do that, right? Go full scale and make the conversation positive, right? Don't use that but because when you use that but, it's gonna go ahead. And kind of curb their enthusiasm for something. And it's done that for me. I've done that to her as well, right? But one thing to do is go over the idea in full before you make a decision. And like I said, um, it seems like a business plan almost, right? But it does show your commitment to covering off all the facts, right? So that was mindful relationship habit number 18. Drop the butts. And we move on to mindful relationship habit number 19, which is learn to be mindfully direct. And this is another very, very interesting habit to form because the book and, personally, some of us can confuse being direct with being rude or demanding. So sometimes we're just fearful of being direct, right? Just saying what's on our mind because we don't want to quote unquote offend someone or be rude. My example, and I feel like you guys know where I'm going with it, is going to say, um, thinking about saying no to like Indian parents, right? Or even having a differing opinion, okay? So, what I'll say is, in my family, we were all sons. There was all boys in my family, besides my mom. And in my experience, right, not me trying to be sexist or anything like that. Um, boys are a little bit lower maintenance in many facets than girls are, right? I think as babies, girls are way better than boys, man. Boys are just crazy as babies. But there was only one lady in our house, right? It was our mom. So usually all the guys, right? We would just go along with what Mama Bear is saying, right? And we don't want to ruffle any feathers, okay? So you flash forward many years, and we start bringing, girls into the house, right? Girlfriend or fiance, and those girls have opinions, right? They have opinions, and they're not wrong for having those opinions, right? They were brought up differently than we were. Um, so it's kind of an adjustment period for my parents to catch up to that. They had to learn to be direct, but also to accept direct communication as well. And I think it was a great experience, right? We're so good now. Our relationship is a million times better. But there was that period of adjustment where they had to be like, all right, you could tell it seemed like we were coming off rude, but in reality, we're just speaking our mind. And if there's anyone I should be able to be direct with, it's, my parents. Um, so going back to the relationship, part of being an adult in a healthy relationship will really call for both partners to say what they feel, but also ask for what they need and express themselves openly, right? With confidence and kindness. And I think that is the finesse in all of this, right? Express yourself with confidence. Don't be ashamed of it, but also express yourself with kindness, right? Just because you express yourself, not everyone has to take it well, right? They don't have to be on board with it. They should support you. Your loved ones should support you, but they don't always have to take it like the way you take it, right? Um, and I think like, we think this might be easy, right? And I don't think I think it's easy, but we tend to bottle up our feelings until they overflow into like an outburst or like an unproductive manner. And we don't want to assume like our partners can read our minds, right? And this takes us back to the four agreements. One of the agreements is don't make assumptions, right? They're not the best. They can lead to negative perceptions and jumping to conclusions, right? So if we believe our partner knows, then our thoughts are going to go unvoiced, right? So if I think that she knows what I'm thinking, then I'm never going to say it. But what if she doesn't, right? So just clear it up. And we all know, right? Some of the worst conflicts in relationships can be a result of speculating and reacting to your own assumptions, right? You're creating a story in your mind, and then you react to it. And so I'm gonna say this, right? Let's say I'm arguing with my fiance, right? And we're supposed to go out for a date night, and we start arguing. My fiance goes in her room, I stay out in the living room, and we don't go on this date, right? And then she comes out and she goes, "I thought because you were mad and we fought, we're not gonna go out for dinner." And I never said that I didn't want to go out for dinner, right? But now the situation can spiral out of control, right? Not only did we fight, but we ruined our night as well, off of some assumptions, right? So I think the way you clarify it is just ask questions, right? Ask a question. Are you mad? Are we still going out? Things like that. Um, Questions always clear up assumptions. Um, and so going on, right? Going on to the next point, forming the habit. Okay, so you listen actively and you practice listening to a direct statement without becoming offended. So, you take that direct communication and you take it at base level. You don't read into it any further. You address that statement and you address the behaviors in that statement. And it can be difficult to do this. So what you don't want to do is traumatize your partner from sharing directly again, right? Let them share directly and don't react to it in a negative way, right? Congratulate them for being direct with you. And because if you are abrasive, it's going to traumatize them. It's going to shock them from doing that again. So that was mindful relationship habit number 19, and we move on to mindful relationship habit number 20. and that is manage your anger constructively. Okay, and this is a tough one. This is a very tough one for me as well. Um, so one is that, and the book goes into this, is that conflict and anger has physical effects on your body. High blood pressure, reduced immune function, all those types of things. Now, when you let your anger take over, and we all know this, right? The book will say that you end up spending more time with the result of that outburst as opposed to the real issue at hand, right? Um, they might be upset because what you swore, right? Why'd you swear at me? Things like that, as opposed to the actual issue that got you guys into the conflict to begin with. So what we want to do is not take steps backwards, right? We always want to move in a positive direction. And the book says that anger is okay, and I think it's okay too, right? Because it can bring up a solid dialogue. But you have to channel it in a proper way, and you don't want to damage your relationship through this angry behavior, right? And so the book says the first step is don't let your anger overtake you. And that's a tough one, right? Like that's a very, very tough one. And how do we do that? You become aware of it, okay? And once you're aware of your tendencies and you continue to do them, then that's on you, right? So like if I know that am an angry guy, let's say I am, right? Let's say I know that I'm angry right now, but I let my anger carry over into my relationship, then that's on me, right? That's me wanting to stay in my misery, right? Um, but what I should do is start catching those reactions, those emotions before it turns out into a full blown fight or an angry reaction, okay? Um, and what happens is, the book says this is like when we become angry, which is so true, you start to distort the entire situation. You can go down a weird rabbit hole and question the whole entire relationship, right? Over one little thing. And what you want to do is not do that, right? You want to counteract that. Address one issue at a time and don't make it a big picture thing, right? Address the issue at hand and don't turn it into something that it's not. Going forward to habit forming, right? Know what triggers you, right? Know the behaviors that are going to get you riled up and become aware of it and start to control it, okay? And we don't want to use passive aggressive behavior here, right? Because um, it can be really destructive to a relationship, okay? It can be very frustrating to deal with. Um, and then this one's really funny. I think, you know what? And you'd be surprised, right? A lot of couples do this. And I think, I might have even done it at the onset of my relationship, like right in the beginning, okay? Like you never want to have a conversation that is serious while you're intoxicated, right? Um, avoid that, right? If you have an issue at hand, personally, like I don't like to become intoxicated. I don't like to drink when I have issues to work through, right? I'll make sure I get that squared away so my mind is in a good space and I can really just enjoy my time when I'm out. The book says, right, alcohol will reduce your inhibitions, and that's not the real you. Even if I've toked up a little bit, right? Like I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait until I'm completely good to have a conversation. I don't want anything to distort my relationship with my fiance. Um, and if your partner even wants to step away for a second to calm down, um, we say that you want to get through conflict as soon as possible and resolve it as soon as possible. But find a way to draw that line and come back when you guys are more level-headed. And then lastly, see if there's something deeper at hand, right? We said anger is a surface level emotion. Ask some questions, right? The book goes into a few questions. Did the anger come about like to cover up an insecurity? Did it trigger something in your past? Did it trigger feelings of embarrassment or shame or guilt or anything like that? And then focus on what your partner is sharing without preparing a defense or becoming offended, right? Do not prepare an argument while your fiance or sorry, while your significant other, in your intimate relationship is expressing their feelings, right? Like it goes back to remove the buts, right? Just listen, right? Listen to open sharing and then respond when it's your turn. So that wraps up mindful relationship habit number 20, managing your anger constructively. And that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. Feel free to leave me any comments. And remember, only positivity. Thanks, guys.